Welcome, welcome, welcome to your daily nugget from the Lord. And as you know, you are here with moi. And as always, one is feeling jubilant. Yes, I am. And I have to say, yes, I have had another few days away from you all. It's such a travesty, just a travesty. But that is because, unfortunately, I've not been unwell, and then my poor mum has been unwell. So, I just have to give good thanks when I can come. Hello, sweetie. How are you? So, today is Wellness Wednesday. Okay, remember we were talking about this every Wednesday from now, most likely until the end of the year. It's Wellness Wednesday, and we're going to be discussing either things to do with mental health or abuse, and how we can find support and the different characters biblically that have overcome and that God was doing for them. Thank you, thank you. I'm trying. So let's just begin and let's talk about Wellness Wednesday. So many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the term depression. Many people today, and especially sadly through COVID, have experienced forms of depression in some way or form. Whether it's been because you became unwell, whether it's been through the isolation and and you weren't able to communicate and have contact with family members, all around within this pandemic, people have experienced some form of mental health issue. And I know oftentimes we don't recognize it and we don't look at it, but I'm telling you, each one of us has experienced mental health issue in some form or factor. And oftentimes we don't realize it can be in moving house, it can be in a bereavement, it can be in divorce. There's all different forms of mental health issues that we would have experienced throughout our lives. And so today we're discussing depression, living with it, or the signs of it, so that we can seek support, and hopefully the family members and the friends around you, if you have that today's mental health issue, depression, will be there lovingly supporting you. So now depression is one of the common forms of mental health. There is child, teen, and adult depression. So especially for educators going back and having their children back at school, this is a time that you need to be a lot more supportive. They've had 5 months of madness, which is not the norm. And especially for the smaller children that were in, say, kindergarten or reception, and they were going to school first time ever, and then they didn't have any school. That was a shock. Then especially for the young people that were taking exams and finishing high school and doing GCSEs, that was a shock. So, you've got a lot of mixed emotions and feelings about what's happened with this pandemic. So, sorry, I just need a little bit of water. And then we can just get into it. Got to wet my whistle, wet my whistle. So there are various symptoms from mild to severe, and we're just going to go through each one accordingly. So let me see if I can get this thing to work. Now, so let us begin with our daily nugget from the Lord. So, I don't know, I'm kind of breathless today. One of those things. It's what happens when I'm away from you for a while. I don't know what it is. So, depression SOS, okay? In the cave of depression. And we're taking today's daily nugget from 1 Kings 19, 1 to 18, okay? We'll be looking at depression and the impact on everyday life and our community today. So 1 Kings 18, 45 and 46. I just want, to give you a recap of events prior to this week's topic on depression. So Elijah was a mighty prophet. He'd been called on Jehovah to send down fire from heaven, then ended a drought and ran faster than a chariot and was filled with the Spirit of the Almighty. Elijah was a boss. He's one of the great prophets after Samuel. So, what changed? Things happened fast. The sky grew black, the wind-driven clouds, and then a huge cloudburst of rain, with Ahab hightailing it in his chariot for Jezreel, and God strengthened Elijah mightily. He pulled up his robe and tying it around his waist, Elijah ran in front of Ahab's chariot until they reached Jezreel. I mean, come on. This man is now running faster than a chariot. This is a mighty man of valor. I'm telling you right here. Okay. So, you know, we when we look at this scenario, we think, wow, this man is on point. So then we get to 1 Kings 19, 1-4. So Ahab reported to Jezebel everything that Elijah had done, including the massacre of the prophets. Jezebel immediately sent messengers to Elijah with her threat. The gods will get you for this, and I'll even get you, and I'll be even with you. By this time tomorrow, you'll be as dead as any one of those prophets. When Elijah saw how things were, he ran for his dear life to Bathsheba, far in the south of Judah. He left his young servant there and went on into the desert another day's journey. He came to a lone broom bush and collapsed in its shade, wanting in the worst way to be done with it all, to just die. Enough of this, God. Take my life. I'm ready to join my ancestors in the grave. So how do we get from such a great for Jehovah to wishing to commit suicide? You know, when this past Sabbath, I was blessed to hear a sermon from Pastor Rodriguez Hernandez on WCS, the worst case scenario. You guys need to go back and listen to it. It's on Quarantine Revival too. If you need the link, I'll share it, but it's amazing. And, you know, it was so cool because crazy enough, this was on the same topic of Elijah and his depression, you know, and I was like, wow, Lord, you're really speaking to me about sharing this right now, because we need to hear about these things. And, you know, being real, too often, many of our churches don't like to talk about this stuff. They like to keep these things private or hidden or behind closed doors, when many of the members and people of our churches are suffering and struggling with these different forms of mental health or abuse. So, you know, Elijah's mind got into a state that he no longer wanted to live. Why was that? Because he got caught up in negative conversations, which brought on negative thoughts, which brought on those dark thoughts. Thoughts like, no one will miss me. You know, like my child or children are better off without me. You know, this is really coming from a self-protection of not wanting to be hurt or being hurt anymore. And often when you're super tired and exhausted, so you can't even think straight, like when you're overworked, or if you have a crying baby and, you know, you don't have that support, or being up all night, or thinking about how to save your home because of your job loss or a divorce. There are so many factors of life which can bring you these days into that dark place. You know, the prophet of the Lord was going through it. You know, depression is really a family of disorders. Major depression presents itself with the classical symptoms of depression, like chronic depression, dysthymia, is less intense and has persisted over long periods of time. Atypical depression symptoms are masked or present in unusual ways. You then have bipolar depression, which was formerly referred to as manic depression, and it is notable by elated highs and major depressive lows. Then you've got seasonal depression, which is seasonal affective disorder, which is SAD, S-A-D, and is characterized by major symptoms of depression when the seasons change, which I actually feel I have that because I'm a sun baby, and I really don't like when we get to winter and it goes all gray and it's rainy and it's cold. That's just not for me. And I just do feel very melancholy. Postpartum depression affects new mothers after giving birth, resulting from hormonal and circumstantial changes in the body. Psychotic depression is accompanied by hallucinations, paranoia, or other psychotic symptoms. Only a professional trained in the dynamics of depression is capable of making the proper diagnosis for which one. Because each type manifests itself differently, it takes training to identify the kind of depression suggested and the appropriate treatment. You may need both your family doctor and a psychiatrist to manage your particular symptoms. And what are the causes of depression? No one knows. It is different for everybody who experiences it. There appears to be a genetic component, though, that predisposes us to depression, but sometimes circumstances can trigger a depressive episode. Changes in brain chemistry may be the root cause, and depression is sometimes a side effect of circumstantial loss. Sometimes elderly people become depressed from loneliness, and so do people who are single. Just as there are numerous types and causes of depression, there are also a variety of treatment methods, talk therapy, medication if required. Actually changing your diet and the foods that you eat have such an impactful thing than just by themselves. So an Elijah, an Old Testament prophet, was a man of strong personality who suffered from depression. So in 1 Kings 19, 5 to 9, he was exhausted. He fell asleep under the lone bush. Suddenly an angel shook him awake and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and to his surprise, right by his head, there was a loaf of bread baked on some coals and a jug of water. He ate the meal and went back to sleep. As you can, these are some of the signs of depression: needing to sleep. The angel of God came back, shook him awake again, and said, "Get up and eat some more. You've got a long journey ahead of you." He got up and ate and drank his fill and set out, nourished by the meal. He walked 40 days and nights all the way to the mountain of God, to Horeb. When he got there, he crawled into a cave and went to sleep. And there the word of God came to him. So, Elijah, what are you doing? So one writer from the International Bipolar Foundation wrote how he felt when he was in his depression. "When I've been depressed, I feel hopeless, alone, afraid, like a failure. Occasionally, I blame myself for my situation and have thoughts of self-harm, sometimes of suicide. While I may overeat, I often don't even nourish myself by doing things I enjoy and find meaningful. Instead, I sleep or watch Law and Order." Similarly, instead of feeling victorious, Elijah felt hopeless, alone, and afraid. He had low self-esteem and wanted to die. He wanted to sleep and had to be encouraged to get up and nourish himself. Elijah, a prophet, a biblical hero, and a person of faith, was seriously depressed. I find comfort in my supporters who don't blame me but listen non-judgmentally, invite me to do nourishing activities, and encourage me to continue my journey of recovery. Some may think of these supporters as angels, but I experience them as God's presence with me. And I just thought that was such a beautiful description, explanation of how that individual felt while they were in depression. As we move on, "I've been working my heart out for the God of angel army," said Elijah. "The people of Israel have abandoned your covenant. They've destroyed the places of worship and murdered your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me." Then he was told, "Go and stand on the mountain at attention before God, and God will pass by." A hurricane wind ripped through the mountains and shattered the rocks before God, but God wasn't to be found in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, but God wasn't in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, fire, but God wasn't in the fire. And after a fire, the gentle and quiet whisper. As you can see, the perception of one's circumstances is a key factor to how one manages a given situation. And it is in these times of low or troubled moments that you should not be alone. I would think I would need to be alone and gather my thoughts and get my head straight, not realizing that it's being on my own that allowed for my mind to wander and get deeper into darkness, till oftentimes I could not see sunshine and I felt even more alone. And that's just the beginning of my story when I was in depression. So, a man of God, a prophet of the Lord, how did he get to this place? What really happened that brought Elijah to such a place of desperation in his life? After he experienced a great spiritual victory, Queen Jezebel threatened to kill him, and Elijah's response was to run away. Eventually, resting under a tree, he prayed to die. Falling into a spiritual low and running afraid, Elijah exhausted himself. Now, this is a perfect example of spiritual burnout. God took care of him by sending an angel to feed him, not once, but twice. An oil lamp burns brightly as long as the oil is replenished, but without oil, the light will die. And this is what happened to Elijah, and it can happen to you or me. I can remember when I was at that place where, you think you want to die, but in reality, you just want to be saved. And I was desperately crying out to God for an SOS, save me. But then I wanted to die. I used to pray, Lord, just let me go to sleep and not wake up, because I'm not going to harm myself. That's not me. Because I don't do pain. You just need to let me go to sleep and not wake up. And when your mind is in that place, you think that your child is better without you. The world is better without you. You have no purpose here. There's no reason, and you're not going to be missed. Why? Because you're in that cave. You're in that dark place. So, this story of Elijah illustrates even strong people can suffer with depression. Coming down from a mountain high experience, you can often discover the valley is deep. It is not unusual to have a powerful experience with God and then drop to an all-time spiritual low. And this is why we need to be prayed up, and especially when we, are the men and women of God that are out there preaching the word and trying to meet the saints. They need to be prayed up because they suffer with things like this. But of course, it's not expected and no one talks about it. So when Elijah heard the quiet voice, he muffled his face with his great cloak, went to the mouth of the cave and stood there. A quiet voice asked, "So Elijah, now tell me, what are you doing here?" And Elijah said it again, "I've been working my heart out for God, the God of the angel armies, because the people of Israel have abandoned your covenant, destroyed your places of worship, and murdered your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me." God's thoughts toward us at this time is nothing but love, kindness, and tender-hearted. We often hear God will not give you more than what you can bear, but often when you're in it, you can't bear it. But God is not gone. He is right there. God said, "Go back the way you came through the desert to Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael, make him the king over Aram. Then anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, and make him king over Israel. Finally, anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from Abel Meholah, to succeed you as prophet. Anyone who escapes death by Hazael will be killed by Jehu, and anyone who escapes death by Jehu will be killed by Elisha. Meanwhile, I'm preserving for myself 7,000 souls, the knees that haven't bowed to God and Baal, the mouths that haven't kissed his image." So one, God sent the angel to give a kind touch and reassure Elijah. A kind touch can actually release endorphins to allow the brain to cope. And this is sometimes what is needed, a hug. That's the reason why they teach you from when a child is born that the simple touch and stroking and hugging allows a child security and to feel loved and to feel secure. 2, water. Staying hydrated is very important. Now, you wouldn't believe it, but the brain is the most selfish of all the organs in the body. And when it feels like something is lacking, it will take reserve of the body's stores first, and all the other organs have to come after it. So if you're dehydrated, your brain will go into overdrive and your thought processes will be distorted. 3, you need good and nourishing food, not fast food or junk food or snacks, but healthy food that helps nourish the body and keep your mind clearer and happier. And of course, The always added, avoiding things like narcotics and alcohol. Why? Because they impair your mind's means to focus and to think clearly. And four, sleeping properly. Adequate sleep is so important as the mind rested is better equipped to make decisions than one that is worn out and is frazzled and not seeing straight. In 1 Kings 19 to 20, it says, Elijah went straight out and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, in a field where there were 12 pairs of yoked oxen at work plowing. Elisha was in charge of the 12th pair. Elijah went up to him and threw his cloak over him. Elisha deserted the oxen, ran after Elijah and said, Please, let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, then I'll follow you. Go ahead, said Elijah, but mind you, don't forget what I've just done to you. Could you imagine? Now, Elijah, he's been restored, he's been refilled. God has come to him, he's fed him, he's spoken to him, he's revived him, he's refreshed him, and now he's out, going back out to do the will of the Lord. Remember, this is the same man that was dying before. He was depressed, he didn't want to live. When you're depressed, let others care for you to restore your strength. Just as the angel did Elijah, receive God's love, receive your doctor's care. If needed, be real with your family and the people around you that love you and your counselor if you have one. Follow their suggestions. Give your supportive friends the opportunity to help you. You are not alone. Let God and your friends refresh you. And like it says in Psalms 139:23, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. So, what are some of the different states of depression? So, we've got high functioning, able to work and fulfill responsibilities, but inside you're still fighting symptoms. But you look happy, you're smiling, and you're going to work and you're doing everyday things. Then you have treading water, can still fulfill some obligations, but this can be very challenging and you get drained a lot more easily and you sleep more and now you're tired all the time. When you're drowning, you're struggling to do the simple things. You can't even fake that smile every day. And you're now suffering with very severe symptoms and it's recognizable. Symptoms do vary and days are different, but it still is constant. So Elisha left and he took his yoke of oxen and butchered them. He made a fire with the plow and tackle and then he boiled the meat, a true farewell meal to his family. Why? Because he was now going to be with Elijah. Then he left and followed Elijah, becoming his right-hand man. Supportive and non-judgmental friendships and family support is vital. In the world, going through life alone is not the one, and I can tell you that. Even the strongest minded person needs someone as their right hand person. That go to when the chips are down and sometimes you just feel so overwhelmed. The people around you in your circle can be some of the key factors to how long, if you do fall into a depression, you could stay there. That song, Everybody Needs Somebody, is relevant. Think who you can be your right hand person or who you can be the right hand person for, or go to for support and speak to them about the situation. If you can, if not, seek outside help, but don't try going it alone because you don't have to. No one has to be on their own in this situation. So some warning signs about depression and when it's setting in. They're much more quieter than usual. They're always tired and they say I'm tired a lot. Sometimes they lose appetite or they overeat. They constantly looking around and they just want to be alone a lot. They smile, but it's not genuine. And they go back to a blank expression. They struggle to keep up and stay engaged in conversation. They become more emotionally distant. They become apathetic about things that they're normally happy and engaged in. These are just a few of the signs, but please be aware of them. But some of the things to say to someone who's depressed is, I love you. I care. You're not alone in this. I'm not going to leave you. Do you want a hug? Because you have to ask. You can't just assume, because sometimes people don't want to be touched, but other times they just want to feel love. I'm sorry you're in pain and you're important to me. So, how do we go through surviving this darkness with Christ? Isaiah 41 says, do not fear anything, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Be assured I will help you. I will certainly take hold of you with my righteous right hand, a hand of justice, of power, of victory, and of salvation. So there are many organizations out there to support you. Please don't feel you have to go through it or live this alone. With, there's the Fresh Hope Mental Health, there's Black Mental Health Matters, there's Live Well, there's the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. There's so many different organizations. And there's Anxiety UK, and there's Bipolar UK, there's Calm, which is the campaign against living miserably for men. There's the Men's Health Forum, because many often feel that, don't realize men suffer from depression. Then you have Minds, promotes the views and needs of people with mental health problems. There's No Panic, a voluntary charity offering support for sufferers of panic attacks and obsessive compulsive disorder, which they offer a course to help you overcome your phobias or OCD. And then there's Papyrus, which is the Young Suicide Prevention Society. And one of the favorites that I always try to refer young people to is the Samaritans, a confidential support for people experiencing feelings of distress or despair. And there's also Young Minds, information on child and adolescent mental health. There's services for parents, there's services for professionals, and there's services for the people who are actually suffering with it. And one of the things that I like, the quote that I found was, which really resonated for me and was so special. And it's, I wish I could show you when you are at your darkest, how bright you make the world for me, and how happy I am that you are here. And if everyone around just knew that they were their own shining star, their own light, it would make such a difference to how that individual feels. And sometimes we don't share with each other the positives and how good we are, and how special and how amazing, and how some of you just light up the room when you come through, and it's hard to always be sunshine. There's days when there's rain and there's a cloud. But if you know how bright and how happy you make the people around you feel, it gives you that sense of longing and love and value. And that's one of the things that we need. Everybody needs that within their life. So, I just want you to know, as always, you are not alone. Now more than ever, we need to find ways to stay connected with our community, and no one should feel alone or without the information, support, and help they need. So if you find anything here that's of interest or of use to you, please do use it, utilize it. Otherwise, you can contact me and I can always signpost you to the different organizations that will be there to support you. So I just want to say thank you for listening to your Daily Nugget today and Wellness Wednesday, and let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for your love, and thank you for showing us in your word that that even the things that we deal with today that have been there before, and that you have made a way. Please, dear Lord, be with everyone under the sound of my voice. Cover them, protect them, keep them in your will, give them a sound mind. And if for whatever reason, dear Lord, they are suffering with any form of mental health, and as this week's topic is depression, help them to find the support that will be there for them, that will be kind, non-judgmental, and supportive. And sometimes it's just about listening. You don't have to offer any advice. You just need to listen. So thank you so much for hearing, for answering our prayers in your holy and most precious name. Amen. Thank you all. Stay blessed and have a great day. And remember, Wellness Wednesdays. Look after your mind. It's an important factor. Stay blessed. Bye bye.